Hello and welcome to an episode of the Manufacturing Leaders Podcast with me, Mark Bracknell, Managing Director of Theo Recruitment. Today, we welcome on Peter Fairley, the Managing Director of the Fairley Gun Group, a business which owns NDT Electronics, Gilligan Engineering Services, Metrics NDT, and Select Control Systems. In this episode, we talk about all things acquisition. Peter, along with his business partner, Jonathan Gunn, have acquired 4 businesses along the way at a relatively young age. So I was really fascinated to go on the journey to talk about exactly why and how he did so. So we talked about what businesses must do to essentially have a business which is sellable, the lessons he's learned along the way, and he talks in detail about pre-acquisition, post-acquisition, how hands-on, how hands-off to be, the importance of culture in a business. So it's one of those episodes where if you're interested in that acquisition journey, either as an acquirer or someone looking to sell the business, you're going to learn a lot from someone who has been there and done that over the last few years. So a real fascinating episode. We also talk in depth, which I absolutely love, about British manufacturing. Peter and Jonathan's goal is to be the heart of British manufacturing and improve the industry, and everything about his business and group is alongside this. So we really talk in depth about the challenges we have right now in the UK and the opportunities and what we need to do to compete with the nation. So I love this episode. I learned a lot. I enjoyed it. We chatted in detail. So I hope you enjoy it too. So please sit back, grab a coffee, watch, listen, and please just click that like and subscribe button. It really helps grow the channel. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the episode. Fantastic, right? A warm welcome today to Peter Fairley, the Group MD of the Fairley Gun Group. How are you, Peter? All good?
Yeah, thanks for having us, Mark. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'm good. Are you okay?
Really good, thanks, mate. Looking forward to it. So first question is the same question I ask everyone that comes on. What does it mean to you to be a leader?
Yeah, so I think to be a leader, you've got to have good instincts, and that's difficult to put your finger on what's good instincts. And then you've got to have good intuition. Then good intuition comes from a few different places. Kind of your experience comes a bit from your instincts and kind of everything you've done in life. But it's more what's inside. I'm not saying like leaders are born or you cannot develop into a leader, but it's definitely something that's in them, whether it's untapped or not at that point in time. And a leader doesn't have to be a title or anything. It can be literally anyone, anywhere. And it's funny when you kind of go through things and you come across different people in different stages of their life and different positions, and you can identify them quite quickly, or you are a good leader.
Yeah, I like that. I like the fact that, like you say, it doesn't have to be a title. When you said that, my memory went back to a few people I've managed before years ago who wanted to be managers, and they're going, I want to be manager. Oh, we'll manage then.
You don't need the title, yeah.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? Because there's different sort of people. People just want to manage and mentor people. Some people actually just want the title, and it's weeding out those, isn't it? And there's only one.
And that's absolutely fine. But as long as they're true to themselves, then you can help them. You can help them get whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking forward to this episode for a number of reasons. Mainly in particular because I guess I have a whole variety of people on here now, and I had quite a few obviously own manufacturing businesses. We're of a similar age. I own a recruitment business. I'm stressed enough owning one business. You have made the decision to acquire and manage and lead various businesses. So I'm really intrigued by this. So could you mind just giving me an introduction, just briefly, about the Fairley Gun Group initially, just in terms of what it consists of, Peter, please?
Yeah, so there's 2 of us, myself and Jonathan James Gunn. So we're 50-50 in the whole group. And as you say, the group was born out of acquisition, and that all started. It was kind of back in 2009 when me and Jonathan met. So we were both doing our apprenticeships, doing our training as junior engineers. And we met in college when we're doing our day release. Met in college, kind of become friends, finished college, finished uni. Uni was 1 day a week. Finished that. We were both working at different businesses. Stayed in touch, quite good friends, common mentality, both engineering centric. But when we kind of finished uni, Jonathan really concentrated on the technical side of it. And although I stayed in engineering positions, I definitely had an aptitude for kind of an entrepreneurial flair about us, which wasn't quite untapped. And then the opportunity come up to buy the place where Jonathan was working. So the previous owners wanted to retire, and Jonathan was the natural succession. But he's super technical, fine on that side of it. But because we'd known each other for a long period of time and knew each other's capabilities and actually knew we were quite complementary, he'd come to me and says, got this opportunity. Would you like to come in it with us? If you do the business side of it, I'll look after the technical side. I was like, well, that's an opportunity I can't miss. So we went away, raised the funds, packaged the deal, then got it done. And during that whole process, we both realized we're quite ambitious guys and there's a lot more to be had there. So from that initial acquisition, we went on and bought 3 more. So now we've got 4 businesses within the group.
Amazing. And what are the businesses you currently own?
So it's NDT Electronic Services based in Jarrow, Gilligan Engineering Services based in Prudhoe, Select Control Systems based in Washington, and then Metrics NDT, which is based in Loughborough in the Midlands. So that was our first one out of region.
Excellent.
When did you went national?
When did you realise you had that? You mentioned that entrepreneurial itch. Has that always been apparent, or is that something that you've sort of created over time?
I've kind of always knew. So from an early age, as I was going through my training, going through the academic learning and all of that, I always knew I had a bit more to give, and always had the itch to work for myself. But initially I thought, it'll be in the subcontracting route. I'll kind of work for myself, I'll be a subby for somebody, some sort of engineering discipline. So it was always there. And I suppose I was just waiting for timing or the opportunity to come up. And this was kind of the perfect one. And then that's just provided the platform to really, what am I trying to say?
I think
potential. So that's just provided the platform to really to reach me potential or go for it. So it's provided a good platform for both me and Jonathan. He's absolutely loving the technical side of it, and I'm getting to play in the business world, which I'm fantastic.
And you had a really good upbringing in companies like Crabtree, apprentice, real good, names in the Northeast, I guess. And was that do you think a lot of what you are because of that initial?
Absolutely. The apprenticeship training I got at Crabtree, luck, whatever it was, the group of guys, the team that I kind of went into were amazing. Still in touch with some of them today. One of them was actually at my wedding. So we kind of stay in touch, and I try and go to the Christmas parties. I'd left Crabtree in, I think it was 2015. And so you're coming up sort of 9-10 years now. And I was still going to the Christmas parties, and it got to the point where the Christmas parties, there was more people who weren't working at Crabtree that were at Crabtree. So that just goes that the culture element there was fantastic. But the product that Crabtree design and manufacture, the metal decorating machinery, the printing presses, for engineering training, it was second to none, because you had the electrical disciplines, the mechanical, the pneumatics, the hydraulics, the control systems, the functional safety. You just had everything on one product, so you could really get this fully rounded engineering experience and then go into whichever specialty you wanted or you were good at.
You mentioned that timing thing as well, and I think time in a business is everything. And often it's not exactly, you wouldn't have known that was the year you were going to do it. You were someone who was learning your trade, but you had your eyes open for that opportunity, and these things don't always land on your lap. You've got to be looking for it, I guess. But actually, there'll be potentially some young engineers here thinking, I want to start my own business, I want to do it. How important was it for you to get those years under your belt to understand the trade first, would you say?
So from an engineering perspective and my personal experience, there's definitely people out there that do well in business and they don't necessarily have the skills or the experience in whatever business the manager know they've got, kind of the investor side of it. But from my experience and being in the world of engineering, having that hands-on experience, learning it, doing it, you've messed up, you've bruised your knuckle, you've cut your finger, I shouldn't say you've had an electric shock or whatever. they're vital if you want to kind of, in my eyes, if you want to rise up in the engineering world, just because you get you can talk to all of the different levels. So when you're talking to, you might take on an apprentice one day, and if you're chatting to them, you can share your experiences. You kind of know what they're going through, and all the way up to whether you're talking to the bank. Sometimes when I'm talking to the bank, if I slip into my engineering mindset and I'd start talking that, I mean, they're very polite and they listen, and maybe they're fascinated and curious, but they're, maybe they gloss over a little bit, but that's fine. It shows I fully know the business. I fully know what's going on. I've got that element of control. So it just helps with my management and my day-to-day decisions. If I make a decision and that sort of filters through, I've got a reasonable idea how that's going to impact the people doing the job.
Yeah. And you mentioned Crabtree, obviously Tharsis, two really big names in Northeast. What do you think now, if you look at the businesses you're involved in now, what lessons have you learned, do you think, and what have you taken from working in those businesses that now you apply into the businesses now you're involved in, you've acquired, would you say?
Yeah. So I don't know what Crabtree had, but it was definitely the people, the people and the culture that they had. So it was amazing. And most of the people are still in touch today and they still socialize and everything like that, although they've moved jobs a couple of times. So I don't really know what they had, but it was just a good bunch of people with a similar mindset wanting to do the same thing. And then huge respect for, excuse me, huge respect for Brian Palmer and Tharsis. When I was there, I'd come in. It wasn't the very, very early stages, but it was a little bit on from that when I joined. So I joined when it was still very change. There was a lot of change going on. There was a lot of new products sort of coming through. They were really establishing themselves and gathering momentum. And then I'd left. And it was actually a couple of weeks ago, I got the opportunity to go back to Tharsis to have a look around as part of the forum. And it was really nice just to chat with Brian and see how far they've come. So say Tharsis, to learn from Tharsis, they've identified what they were really good at, identified a good gap in the market, and then just honed in on that.
Do you think, and this is a question that I'm not saying I've got opinion away on it, but do you think that's rare now? Because I hear your Crabtrees, your Black and Deckers, those sort of businesses where people still talk about where they came up that 20 years ago, where they serve a time, people stayed there for 20, 30 years. I don't think I hear that quite as much now. Do you think businesses have just changed and their motivations are different? Do you think generation change or not? Because I don't feel I hear that quite as much as I used to about how good businesses are in comparison.
Yeah, you did sort of my parents, grandparents, get a job, you set for life sort of thing.
Yeah.
That mentality has definitely changed. Probably thinking about it, probably because there's more opportunity, there's more variety out there. So the likes of Crabtree, fantastic at what they've done. They've established for quite a long time. Hadn't, not to be too critical, but hadn't really changed with the times.
Yeah.
And then when they did start the R&D activities, maybe it was too late, maybe it was half-hearted, maybe whatever. So if people now, because they're a lot more connected, the likes of this, Zooms, Teams, all of that, a lot more connected, places are easier to get to. My wife's from Northern Ireland, and it's a lot easier to hop on a plane at Newcastle, fly to Belfast when we're long distance, and to see her than it was to get to London.
Crazy, isn't it? Yeah, probably cheap as well.
It was quicker and cheaper
Yeah.
to get to Belfast. So people are a lot more connected there. So there's opportunities. So if a business can it or doesn't want to kind of continue to grow and do different things, provide different opportunities to people, different, I don't know, do a different thing, try a different thing. People have quite easy access to other things out there, so they want to try it. And then they can, if they want career progression, if they're ambitious, if somebody kind of fulfill that, then they'll just move on and try somewhere else.
Yeah. So it's almost like we've become less patient. It's this Amazon Prime generation.
Amazon, yeah, it's definitely,
Uh-huh. And I imagine when you were at Crabtree, there was probably tough times. There's probably times where you question things, but people stuck in, dug in, trust the business. And ultimately, that is like you say, probably the difference now where people go, I'm just gonna try something else now.
Yeah, yeah. People, suppose people really at one point had job security quite high up the list.
Yeah.
Not saying they don't now, but like if something happened to that job back whenever, it was, oh, what am I going to do now? Where I think the mentality is, I'll quite easily get a job.
Yeah, no, I think you bang on. I want to fast forward to the acquisition piece. That's okay, because I think there'll be people listening potentially who are interested in that type of industry in terms of how that all works. You mentioned that, raising funds and going through that process. So when you're in that situation where there's an opportunity there to acquire a business, but obviously, not many people that age have got the cash to do it. How hard is that process, and what are the obvious steps somebody would need to take to be able to make that all happen? Would you say, and raise those funds in that situation?
So there's a few different things you can do to raise funds. So people think when you buy a business, it's he has all the cash, I'll see you later.
Yeah.
And then they disappear and buy a Ferrari or end up on the beach somewhere. Doesn't quite happen like that in reality. So there's always an element of deferred consideration. So you'll pay the seller over time, and that can take a few different forms. So when you're acquiring a business, it's all about whatever debt you're going to raise. Can you service it one way or another? Is it through that business? Is it through other businesses you've got? Is it through other ventures or income you've got to service that debt? And then it's raising the initial consideration, so the money you'll pay on day one. So that's kind of what you've got to look for. And then raising that money, there's a few different things you can do for that. So whether you've got some cash in the bank you're willing to invest, whether you can find a third party to come in with the money, like a silent partner, an angel investor, they can do that. Or there's, again, different ways you can actually raise money within the business. So you can self-fund the initial consideration from that business, but you need to be careful that the business can actually service whatever debt you take on, because you'll see it time and time again, raise a load of money on it, don't look after the business, and then it all goes down the swanny. So you need to leverage that correctly and provide whoever's doing the lending with enough confidence that you're actually going to make this a success.
And you've done this a few times now, so you must know what good looks like and what an investable business looks like. And if there's a small business owner out there who has acquisition or a trade sale or whatever as a motive, what do they need to do? What do you look for personally at a business which is attractive for you, would you say?
So first and foremost, the seller needs to be willing to sell. So if they're thinking about it, if they're humming and hawing about it, if they're just kind of, oh, is somebody interested or not? Like, you can just end up wasting your own time, wasting other people's time. I understand there's an element of research that needs to go into it. So you're going to need to have conversations with people. But unless you're ready to sell, the conversations won't get too serious, because a buy, I'll just be put off. They're not going to play cat and mouse with you. Like, just want to get a deal done, want to move on. The longer it drags on, the more it costs everybody. So that's first and foremost, they are ready to sell. And then you start looking for business performance, how well is it doing, the strategic fit to whatever you've got or whatever you're trying to do, and how good is the team there. So is it a team of 5 and there's 2 owners and they both want to exit, but they hold all of the supplier relationships, all of the customer relationships, they do the invoice and the quoting and everything, and what are you buying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then I suppose the big element as well is the seller needs to be realistic about the valuation. So they might be sitting there thinking, I've got £5 million business, and you go in and go, but you do everything and you work 100 hours a week, and nothing's written down, and you talk to all of the customers personally. How are you coming to that valuation? I mean, not to knock the businesses, because it might be providing a fantastic fantastic income and stability and everything for the owners, and they've done really well. It looks after them, provides good income, stability, doing everything they want to do. But to the next owner, it might not carry the same value.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I guess as business owners, we all think we've got great businesses, and we all think, it's isn't it? And you only know what you know. But you bang on a lot of the time. You take that owner out of the business. To what detriment? What's that business look like? I imagine that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. So when we first started, me and Jonathan took over NDT Electronics, and very, very hands-on. That was kind of fine. That's what needed to be happen. That's what needed to be done. And then the other ones were kind of less and less hands-on but now we're at a reasonable size of 4 businesses. The next one, we just cannot. We just cannot be that hands-on. So it's all about building the team, building the culture of everything. So you don't have to be as hands-on as you once were.
Yeah. So I guess you almost then, if you make the same mistake as the potential previous seller, that you're just trying to replace them, and you've only got
and it's a risk. Like the owner being that involved, it's a risk. What happens if, I don't know, the owner wins the lottery, or heaven forbid they become poorly? What happens to all their team members? Suddenly the business is at risk, and everything they've worked so hard to build and look after and build a team and cultivate it, they're all suddenly at risk. So it's kind of not fair on everybody else, the owner being that involved. But I understand, being involved myself, I understand it's great because it's yours and you're building it and you're doing everything, which is fine. But it's that long term view. What's
that like once day one of I guess going into that new business? Obviously, let's say I'm sure there's a period of time, a long period of time working with the previous owner, but there will be a time where they pass the baton to you, and must feel a little bit like Sam Allardyce coming in sometimes and doing that first talk. What's that process like when you realise that it's down to me? And you mentioned that culture piece. I imagine those first couple of months are crucial to keep people.
Yeah, so we've took the approach of, if nobody realizes the ownership's changed within 6 months, we've done a good job. So nice. we just want it to be seamless. So we try and work with the previous owners just to make that whole process as seamless as possible, because they want to sell and we want to buy, and everybody wants it to work. So it's in everybody's interest to work together. So we're try and work with them as much as possible to make that seamless. So when the transaction happens, business just continues, and the people are looked after. They're absolutely fine, just business as normal. Customers, suppliers, they're unnerved. So everything just continues. And then once you get sort of past the 6 months, you've been in there and you know how it operates and you know what's going on. So then you can start to make better informed decisions. The last thing would want to do was go in and just change everything on day one. It would be a worst nightmare for everybody.
Yeah, but I imagine that's the fear for a lot of people, thinking, because obviously in one sense it could and should be a positive that investment, perhaps the previous seller has decided he couldn't take that business any further. But change is scary to most people, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, and it's got to be done right. I'm not saying we always get it right, because we're human, and what you think's a great idea or a great approach doesn't actually work in practice. And so you go through them learning curves of, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have said that. But we're always coming from the well intentions, because we are trying to secure people's jobs. We don't want to come in and make a load of redundancies or anything. That's not what we're about. We want to grow the businesses. We want the businesses to be good, because if the businesses are good, we get to look after that team. They get job security, they get opportunity that comes from that, and we have a good, strong business that's running well. So everybody kind of wins.
In your opinion, is it do you look at things more organically, in the sense, right, who's in this team and what can they do, or is it a case of where are the gaps, how can we fill them, or I imagine a bit of a mix between all that?
It's a bit of both. So perfect scenario is you come from inside and then you backfill, so to speak, because again you're feeding their ambition, but not everybody wants to do that, and not everybody's ready to do that. So you've just got to work with them and just figure it out. Is it best for somebody who's already in there to take up the position, and you'll just coach and mentor them through, or oh no, actually we need somebody who's been there, done it, to come in and do this.
Yeah.
And we've got both. Had both scenarios.
What would you say are the biggest now you've done it a few times? What are the biggest lessons that you've learned? What would you do differently if you do it again?
Yeah.
You're not allowed to say nothing because otherwise
it is the people element.
Okay.
Say we've done some things wrong, and we should have done some things better. We should have done things sooner.
Okay.
Like as soon as you know, oh, something's not quite right there, but you know there's 1,000 other things going on. So you're like, something's not right. I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, that's become quite a big problem, which is a lot harder to deal with. So dealing with things faster would definitely be something I'd do different again.
Apologies for interrupting this podcast with a very quick 30-second description of my business. Theo James are an engineering and manufacturing recruitment search firm based in Durham. We specialise in contract and permanent opportunities from blue-collar, semi-skilled roles right the way up to C-suite level exec positions. If you're looking for any new additional staff or new opportunity for yourself in the industry, please contact me or the team. There'll be a specialist in your area waiting to help. I'm incredibly proud of this business and what we've built since our inception in 2015, and I would love to extend that service out to you. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the episode. And you've obviously selected particular companies that complement each other and complement the group now, which how important is that to pick the right businesses for the business? Is it variety better or niche down? What in your opinion is the best way to look there?
It's you'll always be better off with niche.
Okay.
Like that'll kind of always trump, because if it's niche, well, careful what I was about to say. If it's niche, you'll always have a market, but that's not always the case. You'll always have a market while it's going. But when it's niche, you've got more value to offer your customers. So if you're niche and then you bring something else in, you can be like, oh, Mr. Customer, actually, I know we're doing all of this for you, but we can actually offer this as well. So then you start offering more value to your customer, which is good for business. Yeah. And the customer's looked after. So hopefully whatever they're doing, they can provide greater value. And then that just is a knock-on effect.
Yeah. I imagine you can almost link in some situations the supply chain and the network and that together as well, which will set a big cost saving.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you get a business and they so Select Control Systems being the great example, they buy a lot of obviously control system gear.
Yeah.
So they get good discounts on all of that. So it's better for other internal companies to buy the control switch gear from Select. So they're still getting a bit of a margin, still getting their sales, everybody's happy there. And the other internal companies are getting a bit of a cost saving. So kind of everybody's winning internally. So you start to get them synergies as you bring more in and as you kind of grow.
Yeah, excellent. You've touched on Jonathan a little bit, and I'd be interested in your opinion. How important is it to go into this type of business with someone else versus going it alone? And how difficult is it to pick the right business partner? Because I've heard some stories of people who haven't. So,
yeah. Pick up a book, go to any management seminar. They'll say, "Don't go into business with your friend."
Yeah. And my best pal, I also go on this business, so I understand. More pros than cons, but it can be a challenge. So, what's your experience with it?
We get on really well. We complement each other greatly. So we clash from time to time, but we both know what we want, and we're both heading in the same direction, got the same vision, all of that. So although we'll clash, we're doing it for the right reasons. So I'll be very optimistic and very, let's go and do all of these great things, and he'll be like, well, no, take a breath. Come on, think about it first. So
I'm the take a breath guy, yeah.
so then somewhere in the middle is probably the right thing to do. So that works really well. What was your other question?
Well, I'm interested. Does it come naturally in terms of your roles in the business? Does it come naturally where one of you is naturally more hands-on, one is more naturally leadership, one's business, one not, or actually is that plan documented to go? These are our roles, and this is what we do.
It is documented, but because we've grown like really fast over sort of 3.5 years, there's a lot of crossover and there's a lot of dynamic stuff going on. But very roughly, Jonathan just looks after all of the technical side, and I'll look after the very broad umbrella of the business side of it. But there is a lot of crossover, so he has input to that because he looks at things differently to how I do, and I've got some engineering knowledge, background, and everything. So if he's stuck on a problem and he just needs a fresh pair of eyes, I'm able to offer a bit of assistance. I can't go to the level he can, but I can say, oh, have you tried this, or what about that? Then he'll either say, of course I have, or oh, I never thought of that.
Yeah, it's could you now you have a business partner, could you imagine doing this alone?
No, it's a lot harder.
Yeah,
no, we're being good because you have your good days and bad days, and we're joke, as long as we don't have a bad day at the same time, we're all right.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, because I agree. There's financial pros, I guess, for some people owning businesses outright, but for me, it's a lonely world as is, even with two
Yes.
of you. With
Yeah.
one person, frightening.
Yeah. No, it's been really good. I couldn't have done it without him. Don't know what he'd say about me.
I'll get him on after this and see. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's been invaluable doing it together.
Where do you see it going? What's the big picture? What's the vision for the Fairley Gun Group? 10, 15 years from now, you might be on a beach somewhere and sold up. But what's the big vision for you? We say.
So the whole vision of the group was to champion and support British manufacturing. So there is some financial targets attached to that, but that's not really what's driving it all. I'm going to go back to the Crabtree days when I first joined there. I think it's just again back to the timing element. There was a lot of people who were kind of ex-shipyards, ex-coal mines. So some really, really the heritage of the manufacturing and engineering from the Northeast. Some of them were working at Crabtree. So I had the benefit, the luck of kind of getting trained off some of them, but then they retired. And you didn't have to look very far to go, well, actually, there's a lot of businesses in the Northeast and throughout the UK that were probably born out of recession or redundancies or something closing. And they started, welding's a great example. So the shipyards closed. Some people got a job, some people didn't. Some welders, take a welder, for example, they could go to welding. They're like, oh, what the hell do I do to pay the rent this week? So they've done some welding for somebody. Before they knew it, they were like doing welding for someone else. They were doing welding for someone else. They're like, oh, I've got a lot of work here. So they hired somebody. Fast forward, they've got like a couple of £1 million business and people working for them. And then they're like, how did I get to this stage?
Yeah.
They're dotted everywhere. And the work they're doing is probably in the supply chain of UK infrastructure or the UK defence or the supply, and they've got customers, so they're doing something for somebody. So all of these businesses, skills and everything, if they don't have succession, they're going to just kind of fizzle away, and we're going to have to learn again. So I'm not saying I'm saving the world or anything, but we want to, as we grow, we want to take on these businesses that we're maybe just going to just fizzle away, and keep them going, and hopefully when we take on the business, they're not all in their 60s. They've took on some other people, that maybe took on some trainees, some apprentices, and we can have that continuity for them. So that's, as we grow, we want to take on businesses that help to champion and support British manufacturing. That's what we're doing.
I love that. Honestly, I think that is unbelievable. I can feel the passion there, and it's so much. I think people don't talk about that enough. People don't talk still. British manufacturing. I love your brand, and you've only got to go on your LinkedIn, your website to see that brand of British manufacturing.
Yeah, thanks for that.
It is so important though, because I used to say manufacturing powerhouse in the UK and stuff. But I almost think we're kidding ourselves now because we're getting beaten everywhere. And it's so sad because we shouldn't be, because we've got the infrastructure, we've got everything we need to be the powerhouse for manufacturing, and we hopefully will be. But I just think we need to wake up to the real challenges that we've got now, because there's not enough people like you doing what you're doing, and there's some really good businesses shutting the doors right now, and it's probably been some of the worst few weeks since COVID, really. I would say to some extent worse, because there was support there at the time to keep businesses open. So this has been almost one of the most depressing few weeks I've seen in a long time, manufacturing. It really has. And it's scary, isn't it?
It is scary. And not to say it's all doom and gloom. There's some fantastic investment going on in the UK from your multinationals, the automotive industry up and down the country. They have kind of investing. You've got the hydrogen stuff and the wind farms kicking off in Teesside. So that's really good for the Northeast. So there is some really good stuff going on there. And the gap, everyone talks about the skills gap and the sort of 30-year period where the UK never really invested in apprenticeships or traineeships or anything like that. And you talk to any business who manufactures or engineers something, they'll tell you the same. It's hard to get engineers and what have you. And you've got kind of the young ones who are sort of in their 20s or what have you. Then you've got people who are closer to 40, and then there's not much in the sort of middle. So you've got that huge age range generation, which doesn't really have the hands-on engineering skills. So yes, all of these places that are shutting the doors and everything like that, you could argue, there is the argument that it's good because people find a way to continue. So the place closes, another business that's more efficient, is doing better, can do whatever they were doing more efficiently and better. But you've got all of that skill set, everything that was in there. They'll have archives and drawings and everything that go back so far, that'll just be lost. So I've got no doubt we'll find a way to continue, because we always do. But why make it harder? Why let all of that go away? I was at a conference last week, and they were talking about the defense, and the defense industry are predicting that they're going to end up with an obsolescence issue within there. And I'm not saying it's all of these small businesses closing that's calling that, but they'll have in their archive somewhere, if they've done some work for the defense industry, all of that. Now that's an extreme example, but you could put that through everything.
Yeah, you could 100%. And one of the words you mentioned there is that efficiencies, because you look at China and these sort of countries. Yes, it's cheaper, but they don't have right now. They might get there, but right now they don't have the same level of efficiency and process that the UK does. And that's where I still think we've got an advantage. I also think that there's an opportunity, because I think as advanced manufacturing comes more to fruition, and you look at all the new technology that plays into the new generation hands perfectly, because that old school engineer trade, that people want to get into, that might be dying out slightly, but it's moving towards technology. And kids now, my little lad he loves technology. He grows up with it, and I think that's the difference. If we can capitalize on that market, get them interested now, that's where I think we can make the difference. That's my optimistic view on the situation.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Like everything's moved forward. We're not manufacturing stuff now the same way we were 20, 30, 50 years ago. So it has moved forward, which is which is important that it does that. And especially with this new digital generation coming through, as you say, they grow up on iPads and doing whatever. If you can make the workplace like that, it's going to attract them to that industry. So you're gonna fill the skills gap in a different way. Maybe it's not the traditional way that you have been for the last few years, last decades, but we will find a way. But there is businesses out there, and it would just be an absolute shame for them just to fizzle away.
The challenge, I think, is probably capital. The amount of people I speak to go, I love to automate, I love to bring all this investment in, but it costs a lot of money. It's a big old justification, and when they get the return. For a company like, the companies that you're working, your businesses, which are obviously, small growing businesses. How do you balance that out? Because you can't just get a 300 grand machine and expect balance of books the same week, is it? It's just not, it's not possible. So is that start small and implement what you can within the business process wise?
Yeah, so you've definitely got to look at it about your what's good for you, what's going to, obviously your ROI is what's going to give you the biggest impact, shortest and most cost effective way. When you look for us, the way we do business at the moment, the easiest things for us is around I don't really know how to phrase it. It's around the operating systems that we use that can be more automated. So we've got a lot of service engineers and don't really want to send them to site with an iPad. So there's a lot of paperwork that comes. So we could be more efficient and do things with the paperwork.
Yeah.
So that, and then as soon as you start removing multiple data entries and things like that, so it's basic stuff, removing multiple data entries, you're not having somebody type in the customer's name or the value 3 or 4 times. You start getting them efficiencies, so the same people can concentrate on other things that are bringing the business or your customer value.
Yeah, completely agree. It's almost like when you go NHS, isn't it? When you go to the doctor sometimes, and you have to speak to 500 people, and you have to tell the 500 people the same thing, and they type in, you just think, how is this still a thing? It's crazy.
Yeah. So and as we grow, we're kind of going through iterations of let's review this, because like at the NHS, you kind of get too big and then try and do it because I don't know who's going to sort that out or try and but I hate to get too big and then you cannot retrofit it.
Yeah,
or not easily.
Yeah. Well, you look at COVID, where suddenly businesses, even outside manufacturing, had to work from home. Big businesses who had no laptops and no pros, that they really suffered, versus small business where it's going to hurt a little bit, but we can pivot quite quickly. And it's the same thing, isn't it? The companies need to do it when they're small and making the norm before it's too late.
Yes. Yeah. So just little changes as you go, little tweaks as you go, rather than big ones, because they're costly and it's kind of a shock to everybody's system.
Yeah, 100%. This, all this, what you're doing now is amazing, but I also imagine a lot of work and a lot of late nights and early mornings. How do you and Jonathan sort of manage your stress and your own mindset through periods like this? And I imagine different periods call for different actions.
Yeah. So there's no one easy answer to that. You've just got to, as you've got to start to recognize the triggers within yourself. So if you're starting to get a little burned out or a little exhausted or whatever them trigger signs or things might be to you, maybe you start to get a little bit more irritable or you have brain fog or whatever it is that starts to affect your performance. You've just got to be honest with yourself and each other about, oh no, I'm just going to take a couple of days off. Yes, okay, it's probably the worst timing. It'll be in audit season and there'll be some crazy stuff going on, and you kind of take them 2 days off, but it's fine. Everything keeps going. You have a couple of days off, sort yourself out, relax a bit, and then come back at it, rather than we've never got to this stage, but we're conscious that we don't end up pushing ourselves too far, then you end up having a couple of months off.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to avoid. So you just kind of breaks as we need them. Yeah. That's how we've been going so far.
Yeah.
We've built a really good team, so they've taken a lot of it as well.
Nice. Yeah. You know what? It's refreshing to hear that, because I think if you'd asked 100 people this 30, 40 years ago, I dare say they'd gone, just part of the gig, you have to get on with it. Where do you know what I mean? I think they would, and I don't think it should be part of the gig, because you mentioned there the end result, unfortunately, is you lead to clear burnout, and everyone then feels that stress, don't they? Something as that.
Yeah. If I think people cope for if you're not around for a couple of days, that'll be absolutely fine. But if you've got to take a few weeks off or a few months off, they're going to notice that impact.
Yeah. And I think the team know when you're stressed, well, don't you? And I think they know if you're not on it, you're not making the right decisions. So I agree. A couple of days off to one step back, 2 forward, isn't it?
Again, we don't always get this right, but we try and emphasize to the team, no take time off, leave your work phone at work, go on holiday. We're not going to ring you unless the place is on fire. Like, we'll manage, we'll figure it out. You're only away a week, we'll figure it out. So we really encourage our staff to do that. So it's kind of important we do it as well.
Yeah.
Just to show that, oh, well, if he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a badge of honor, is it, to sweat it all day, all night?
Nah, you're not helping anybody. You know, if your physical, mental health or whatever starts to deteriorate, your home life will probably start to fall apart. And then the snowball and the knock-on effect to that is just, it's a downward spiral, which is hard to stop.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah.
And just finally, what's the plans in the next sort of 12 months for the group then? What's happening?
So we're still trying to stabilize stuff. So we're sorting internal things out before we get back at the acquisitions. Keep saying that, unless one falls in my lap or it's a perfect opportunity or something, then I'll maybe just look at it. But we want to do a factory move next year. So that'll be a big step for us. Get in one place, get a couple of the businesses in one place, stabilize things. Some beautiful growth opportunities will come out of that for new products, new services that we can deliver. Will come out of that. Efficiencies that will come out of that. We'll have ourselves a nice little headquarters, and then 26 we can get back at the acquisitions and all of that good stuff.
Excellent. And what's the best for people who either want to talk to you about their business or want to work as part of your group? What's the best way to contact you? LinkedIn or?
Yeah, LinkedIn, absolutely. Just drop us a message on LinkedIn and we can take it from there.
Well, look, I want to thank you, Peter. It's been fascinating actually, because my knowledge of the acquisition world is non-existent, and I've learned loads today, and I think people as well, because one of those things where I think most business owners, me included, just get their head down and try and build a business, and suddenly look up, it's been 10 years, and you go, okay, right, what next? But the things you've spoken really well about today in terms of actually how you grow a business which has some sale value, and the important things you look for. It's just been fascinating, but also I love what you do in the champion British manufacturing, because I just don't see enough of it. I think the more people that do that, the better this industry is going to be. I'm proud to work in it, because there's people like you in it, as simple as that. So thank you, Pete. It's been great.
Cheers for having us on, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Manufacturing Leads podcast. It absolutely means the world to me. Please let me know if you need any assistance. As a business, we look at providing partnerships with manufacturing engineering companies to really help their recruitment and retention. On the recruitment piece, anywhere from blue collar, semi-skilled staff, right the way up to C-suite level executive appointments, but also much more than that. We run events, so please let me know if you're interested in any of those. If you are interested indeed becoming a podcast guest, I'd be very, very keen to speak to you as well. More than happy to do so. But as a business, as I say, we look at key partnerships to really help your recruitment, your retention, your marketing, your training. We really believe in the partnership piece and being an extension of your business. So we're very proud to work in this sector. I love manufacturing engineering, and my staff are just as passionate about it as I am. So thank you once again for listening. Please get in touch to talk about anything we can do to help. Look forward to speaking to you very soon. Thank you.